Okay, it is 6:02, January 1st or January 4th, 2022. I call this meeting of the Wellfleet Select Board to order in accordance with the temporary suspension and enhancement of the open meeting law as allowed by the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The first order of business is open session public comments. Public comments must be brief and the board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Are there any? John?
Yeah, I've got something on my screen. It says I'm viewing Rebecca's screen and I can't see anything else really.
Ooh.
Okay.
It's basically a copy of, it looks like the agenda or something. It's like
Yeah.
a web page or something.
Yeah.
It says announcements, open session and public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
for when other information comes on that we can all see it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Dick Elkin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, everyone knows that the town is installing a new water main from Gristmill Way, that's Coles Neck Road, Wellfleet, down Route 6. The Board of Water Commissioners, with the assistance of the Wellfleet Community Forum, is planning an informational Zoom forum on Wednesday, January 19th at 4 p.m. to outline the project, the areas involved, and the proposed schedule. There'll be a question and answer period afterwards, and we invite representatives of the town and the Board of Water Commissioners to participate. It's a good opportunity to find out more for abutters to find out how it will impact them. And so we will have all the details published on the town website and probably the community forum website when we decide whether it'll be hosted by the forum or by the town. So thank you.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, most of us know this already, but not all of us. We need to update just an announcement to people. If you want to raise your hand, you have to go down to what's called reactions, not to the participants list. That hasn't been the case for some time, and I think it should be changed on our cover sheet. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other public comments at this point? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the first order of business, which is COVID-19 updates and recommendations. Let's see. I thought Hillary was, okay. 1 second, let me pull up Hillary's report. Okay, right now, Wellfleet has 40 confirmed cases of COVID within the past 2 weeks. About half have been vaccinated and boosted. There's going to be a there will be a soft opening of a stop the spread testing site at the Melody Tent in Hyannis. And then the stop the spread site will move around the Cape. But at the there'll be the town has, or the health department has partnered with Truro and Eastham to purchase home testing kits and have also requested additional testing kits from the state, and hopefully, and those should be available through the health department whenever those arrive. And the health department has started inspecting to ensure mask compliance, and at this time strongly encourages N95 masks to be worn, or other masks of that nature. There's also at the Four Cs Community College, there's vaccination clinics on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, the times are from 8:30 to 1:30. On Sundays, it's 12:30 to 6 p.m. Those clinics are open to the public, and the registration can be done through the 4Cs website, and can also be found on the VaxFinder, and that is for Moderna and Pfizer. There are certain dates where those are available. They are, well, the first day was today. The other dates are January 6th, January 9th, 11th, 13th, 16th, 18th, 20th, 23rd, 25th, 27th, and 27th. And with that, are there any other points right now? Okay, so I had a discussion with Charlie a little earlier today. First, does the board wish to discuss at all the letter that we received from Wallace?
Yes.
Okay, John?
First of all, I'd like to point out, by way of facts, I come from a family that includes 7 healthcare professionals, all of whom are on the front lines of this in one way or another. One of them, the brother I happen to be staying with right now, spent a number of years working for the Public Health Service and as the chief medical officer of one of our primary federal law enforcement agencies. And I presented this issue to him. We talked about it. And he pointed out to me something I basically knew already, which is that anybody can go to the CDC website and find links to voluminous research on the efficacy of masking. There is no rational basis for questioning the efficacy of masking in preventing the spread of this virus. Some of the misinformation I have seen in some of the letters I've seen to address to us, such as that masking exacerbates the flu, for instance, is absolute nonsense. It's dangerous nonsense. The facts are readily available. Anybody can access them point by point. As far as vaccination, I just spent over a week in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I picked up the coronavirus. Missouri has about a 50, I think the last time I looked, it was like a 56% vaccination rate. I made the same mistake a number of people have been making, before the new variant became really active, which is that I thought it was okay to go back to public performance. I picked up the virus at such a performance. 2 of us on stage came down with it later. Both of us have been vaccinated and boosted. Neither of us ended up in the hospital. Neither of us ended up showing much in the way of symptoms, unlike those who have not been vaccinated. A member of my family out there is a nurse in a major hospital in St. Louis in the intensive care unit. He showed up Christmas night absolutely exhausted, discouraged, ready to quit, burned out. Every COVID patient he treated had not been vaccinated. Now, moving on, it is true that vaccination, especially with the new variant, is not necessarily as effective at preventing the spread as it was with the earlier variants. But what we know beyond any doubt at all, and this can also be verified through sources like the CDC, is that that vaccination greatly reduces and prevents the likelihood of hospitalization or death. Even among those who have been immunocompromised, it's proven to reduce the likelihood of ending up in the hospital. Nobody is forcing anybody to get vaccinated, but the fact that so many people, especially in certain states, have failed to do so, coupled with the fact that we've had a lot of visiting between states over the holidays, makes it inevitable that we're going to see these spikes. Now, there is some truth to what he mentioned in this letter regarding the negative effects of masking on childhood development, especially in early childhood. That has been proven in a number of studies. However, there's no perfect solution to any of this. There are trade-offs. Now, do we leave our children vulnerable to this in an effort to prevent the negative effects of masking on their development, or do we mask them and leave them susceptible to infection? That's the choice. Those are the kinds of choices we have to make these days. Now, there's a reason this is called the novel coronavirus. It is something new in our experience. The science on it is continually evolving. It is a learning curve that we're still in the middle of. And to somehow ascribe these measures that many of us feel we need to take to some kind of conspiracy to destroy our freedom is, I think, I don't want to go off onto that because I'll get upset. But the last thing I want to point out, or the second to last thing, is there is no obligation on this select board to individually approach anybody who comes up with these letters to justify what we're doing. The science is there. They can look it up just as easily as I can look it up and as you can look it up. So, yeah, to that part of it, I say no. We have far too much on our plates right now in other aspects of what we have to deal with in town government to take time out to individually answer every concern of every person who disagrees with the science on this. I think we can address this as a board satisfactorily. As to those who say that we don't have the right and the Board of Health doesn't have the right to impose these mandates, nonsense. Show us the letter of the law where we don't have the right to do this. Now, as I said at the beginning, last point, I come from a family of healthcare professionals. They are on the line trying to help us get through this. 80 years ago, we had to pull together to prevent a different kind of a threat. We had to face rationing, we had to face shortages, blackouts, the draft, and all the rest of it. I don't think it's asking too much to pull together as a town, and I'd like to see this, frankly, done statewide, to get through this and come out the other side. No one is trying to take anybody's freedom away, but with freedom comes responsibility. So people who support the Second Amendment don't sit on their back porch and do target practice and endanger their neighbors. They consider their neighbors and behave responsibly. They exercise their freedom with responsibility. And I don't think it's asking too much in this context to do the same thing. That's all I got on it.
Okay. Helen?
Yes. Wait, am I unmuted? Yes. A few points. Preceding the pandemic, we as a world already know about the physics of virus transmission. Aerosol microbes remain suspended in dry air for longer than in moist air, which is why we have flu season, both indoors and outdoors. Different viruses, different microbes have different shelf lives in the air. Measles, it can be a few days. This virus, at least initially, it was a few hours, but that's breaking news as the mutations occur. So when I started using the ways in which I choose to avoid getting this, and we all have different risk choices. I fully respect the risk choices of people who don't even want to be vaccinated, although it is a hazard to the community, as we know from the people in the hospitals all across the nation. But I get it. And I very much appreciated the correspondent's polite and reasonable question for us to each address why we thought it was a good idea to have a mandate. John touched on some of the reasons I have. But there's no one way to completely ensure protection against getting this particularly robust and easily communicated virus. Masking, distancing, hand washing, vaccination, not gathering in person. Hey, it's all partial. I choose to do all of that, but I know that other people don't. And we have to watch it as it unfolds, mutation by mutation, and see which of those techniques can help. The masking has particularly to do with the aerosol life in dry air, because we do know that what comes out of you, what you exude in terms of droplets, does remain suspended in the air. We know that. It's science. What you do about it is another question. The last reason to be super careful now is that we don't know enough about long COVID yet. Unlike a lot of other viruses, like I've had the flu 4 times, it wasn't fun, I don't want to get it again. I've had pneumonia, I don't want to get that again. This virus has some long-term effects on some people, quite a few people, and we don't know enough about it. And I'm going to be super careful, precautionary principle applied until I know more, because I can't, in my life, I can't afford to get seriously sick right now for a variety of reasons. So to answer our correspondent's question, that's why I voted against this, plus all the children that can't be vaccinated yet. Thank you.
Okay, Janet,
Oh, before I go on, Helen, what did you mean you voted against what?
Wait, did I say against? I voted for the mask mandate.
Okay,
Did I say
good. Yeah, I was gonna, yeah, you said I voted against it.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna take up more time. Both John and Helen spoke thoroughly on this subject. I fully support what our Board of Health says. The people in the know say, and just, you know, I have a variety of family. My 4-year-old grandson wears a mask and it's just not a problem. He just puts it on when we go into the grocery store. And it's as simple as the Board of Health recommendation that you cover your mouth when you sneeze. I'm hoping everybody here covers their mouth when they sneeze or cough. And, you know, you just, because of the severity of this virus, you just work a little harder at it. So yes, I'm in full support of our Board of Health and their mandates. Thank you.
okay. So I would say, before I go to the number that has their hand up, that this sort of information, or the sentiments expressed in these letters of correspondence are dangerous. Giving them a platform or a space to promulgate misinformation is dangerous, and endangers, you know, members of the public, and just adds to the volume that seems to be going around the country and the world in terms of the amount of misinformation that is out there. So before I go to the member of the public who's called in, Just realize that if levels of misinformation start being promoted, I will have you muted. So, okay, can you unmute the call-in? And for the record, somebody, whoever it is, has to identify themselves for the record.
They should be all set to unmute.
Okay. Looks like we lost him. Okay. Yep. All right. So moving on, the other issue, I talked to Charlie about this earlier today. I have heard from at least one member of staff about it. And that's a concern with town hall and remaining open at this time. So in my discussions with Charlie, he recommended that we could leave it open for 2 days or have reduced hours and have it open for 2 days a week and closed to the public except by appointment on the other days of the week. Right now, we really need town hall to function. And there has been, without going in, and there has been positive cases among staff, which cause disruption of the functions of the town hall and town governance, which is right now really in a critical period of time. I know it's a very inconvenient time for a lot of people, especially those with renewing or being a first time getting their commercial shell fishing permit. But for those, I would say that, we can reduce the hours for the 2 days a week and they can call and make an appointment to make arrangements to get their license if they're having trouble with the online functionality. So Helen?
Yeah, to address what you just said, although I had my hand up for another reason. That deadline passed on December 31st, but that's another subject.
No, it passes on January 31st, Helen.
January 31st?
Yes, it's in the regs.
Well, you know what? I made another mistake. Thank you, Ryan. Sorry about that. So what I was going to say was, this is the closing the town hall. I fully support. I gather that staff, this comes from, through you, Ryan, to Charlie. In other words, this is something that staff, from their experience and the ongoing situation, has said they want, right? Through you to Charlie, yes?
Yeah, so yeah, thank you, everybody. I think, we've been talking about this and as Ryan indicated, we have a number of situations that have are real and concerning. And I think initially there was some conversations about going back to, full closure. I'd like to moderate that and have a couple of days. I will say that, we have had public coming into the building. My observations have been that people have been very compliant and respectful. So I'm grateful to the public for that. But, I think that we want to get through this period and reduce risk and exposure, but still provide a level of service. And I believe this might be something in between.
Okay, so he answered my question. So in that case, thank you, Ryan. I want to just say, this is yet another example of, we have to address this in many ways that are only partial, but it will make things better. And certainly people who have to work, in quotes, behind a counter are the ones who were really on the front lines. That was another reason for me voting for a mask mandate, was all the people in the stores and otherwise behind counters need to have the security of the town supporting their safety. Thank you.
So with that, I'd like to make a motion. So I move to close the town offices except for Tuesdays and Thursdays or by appointment until February, February?
28th.
I'd do
Okay.
28th too, yeah.
Yeah, February 28th.
One second.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, and then I would also like to make an additional motion that other town facilities may be closed to the public at the discretion of the town administrator until February 28th.
Second. Yeah, second.
Okay,
It's at the discretion.
yep,
Yeah, and discussion, please. Can I just,
Okay,
say
yep.
anything? Just putting it out there, that department heads in those buildings, I'm sure the TA would discuss this with them. Thank you.
Yes, obviously. So, okay, can I have a roll call? This is just so that, you know, if something happens and they decide that that's desirable to close or limit the hours, that they do have the ability to do that. John?
Yeah, I think it's it's important, though, to make sure that we have, you know, the different departments have mechanisms in place. You know, for instance, if I need to go to the fire department to pull an oil burner permit or something, that there's a way to do that without contact, you know, so that business can proceed. Just that we can keep doing the things we need to do, or if somebody needs to go to the DPW to pull a building permit, that there's some method of doing this, either online or, you know, the way we do at town hall with the box outside.
Yep, I know that earlier for the DPW and the conservation department, they had a lot of the paperwork outside and would do exchanges. So,
Okay.
but all right, so can I call the question?
Yeah.
Yes, Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Brian, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Are there any other subjects for the COVID-19 updates and recommendations at this time? Okay. Seeing none, the financial management work plan. Charlie?
Thank you, everybody. So I think I'm going to repeat a few issues that I've talked about in the past, just because I know there's really a heightened sense of concern about this matter in the community, and you know, I'm sensitive to that, and I appreciate it. Now, Lisa Sauvé, Mary McIsaac, and I have been, you know, working for the town for, you know, over almost 7 months. We've made a lot of progress, and if you go back and listen to some of my past presentations, we had hoped that when we reached the end of December, that we would have finished the sort of the forensic work that we're doing, which is really a detailed level of effort that is looking at each and every transaction. And as I've indicated in the past, we've found a lot of errors that appear to be, you know, errors that were avoidable, but weren't. And we've made a lot of corrections. Now we've had a vacancy in the town accountant's office, and I always, I don't want to go into a lot of detail, but we've had someone who's been out on appropriate leave. So Lisa Sauvé has been doing two persons' jobs, the town accountant's job and another person's job. So I'm grateful to Lisa, and I know, and I understand that a lot of people are appreciative of her efforts. Now, Mary McIsaac now has stepped in to fill the role of the treasurer. Miriam Spencer resigned as of December 1st, 2021. So Mary has had to backfill that position. And there's a lot of challenges with that transition, but she's a pro and she's committed, and I'm grateful for her efforts. But it has stymied the goal that we had to finish up the forensic work by December 31st. And I will also add that Lisa, Mary, and I we're anxious to move on, to finish the important role that you've hired us to do. I talked to Mary and Lisa yesterday and today, and they're still persevering, and they're working all kinds of crazy hours. But we still intend to finish this effort by the end of January. I think it's going to be delayed by about a month. Now, at that time, we'll present a report, all three of us, with our findings. And, if you go back to the variance that was suggested by our auditor of the $760,000, perfection would be to get to zero, right? Find every error, every omission, every issue. And, that's sort of the gold standard that we're trying to attain. I don't want to suggest that we will attain that. But I think I know we're making a lot of good progress, and we'll improve those numbers substantively. Now, I don't want to guess at what that might be and how many corrections we've made, because it does a disservice to the process. But we're continuing to work at this. Now, once that occurs, as I say, we'll report to the select board and to the finance committee and to the public. And then our goal is to close out FY20 and close out fiscal year FY21. As I've mentioned in the past, FY21 is a lot more challenging than FY21. FY20 is a lot more challenging than FY21. And there was a lot of transitions that went on at that period of time. So that's really been, stubborn and demanding, but we're working at it. And I'm still confident of the plan that we have in place. I've received questions periodically from people. And if we get to the end of this process, and you're not satisfied with our final product, there's always some type of a mechanism where we could bring someone in to do some type of I'll call it a peer review of our efforts. And we would not be offended if the select board decided to do that, because this is important relative to transparency and give the town some confidence that we've done work that's of an appropriate detail in nature. So now some of the other things I'm going to just roll into is I did take last week off, by the way, and I really had a marvelous Christmas break with my crazy, cute 2.5-year-old granddaughter. But I'm back. And so Judy Sprague, as I've mentioned in the past, has been with us for a couple of months. She has really been helping me put together the budget for fiscal 2023. Our goal is to have a budget and a draft warrant done by the end of this week, by Friday. Now, I might slip a little bit and it might go to Monday, but I really want to have this behind me. So I intend to have a budget document for the select board and the finance committee by the end of the week. And that'll include a draft warrant in a cover sheet that provides a level of detail on what the significant issues in the budget are. We basically tried to put together a budget that reflects the same level of service and programs as exist today, because I think that's a nice base to establish. Now, so that'll be done by the end of the week. And then next week, I'm going to finish up the financial forecast. So what does this budget mean relative to our ability to finance it with the revenues that we have available? So anyway, by the end of the following week, I'll have that finished up. And, you know, I believe that there will be a need for an override if you want to protect and maintain the services that you have. We've been using a lot of one-time revenues to fill operating costs, and it's just not sustainable. Anyway, by the end of that following week, so I'll have that effort done, and I'll be able to give you in the public some really good detail on what I think will be an override to sustain the program that you provide to your community today. The only other thing that I'd like to mention is what, and I should have mentioned it a little bit earlier, is when we finish closing out FY20 and FY21, then we can apply to the Department of Revenue to certify free cash. And free cash hasn't been certified since June of 2020. And that was effective July 1st, 2019. So anyway, so, you know, that'll allow us to certify free cash. The first thing that I would recommend to the town, if we have some free cash, we should have some free cash, is that we replace the monies that we took out of the stabilization fund back in June 26, 2021 at the annual town meeting. And, you know, our critical goal is to protect the town's bond rating. And I think that's a huge step to do that. And then to, you know, we'll be talking about a lot of details as we go through the winter, but to establish some good practices going forward. So I think I'm going to stop there. Should you have any questions?
John?
Yeah. Two questions. One of them is if by the time you've reached the finale, there is still a fairly substantial amount of that $700,000 unaccounted for. Will there be a process going forward to ascertain what actually happened to that? And because there, you can, as you can imagine, there will be questions raised about that. And I should also mention that the possibility of, as you mentioned, as you say, a forensic accounting, a forensic auditing firm being brought in, that can also, I believe, be done by citizen petition on the town meeting warrant, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I think I would say to you is let us finish our work product, huh?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, no, and I know, and I didn't take it any other way, so I don't want to suggest that. So let's see where we end up. I'm still optimistic that that you might be reasonably satisfied, but let's let the process unfold.
Okay.
Yep.
Mike?
Yeah, it's been reported in the paper several times that the variance of $765,000 remains unresolved. And I just think it's important to clarify that when the auditors came and did their and submitted a management letter, they had sort of pinpointed where the variance was and made a recommendation to the town to make a single adjustment to the ledger in order to resolve that. And the financial team actually wasn't satisfied with that and wanted to go further and get down to the bottom of each individual transaction, but that there was a agency fund that was upside down to the tune of very close to the number that was in the red on the town's ledger. So the auditor did recognize where the funds had gone into the chart of accounts, and that this was never a situation where there was $765,000 that was missing out of the ledger that wasn't somewhere else that could be balanced. Like there was always a upside down balance in another account. So there's a variance, but it was already somewhat resolved. And what the financial team is doing is getting to the bottom of each transaction and correcting that. So I don't think it's correct to say that there's a $765,000 variance that's unresolved, or that there was ever $765,000 missing at all. So
Yeah, and
Charlie can verify that.
I would just say that, we've spent many months and looked at a lot of transactions, a lot of deposits, a lot of expenditures, a lot of journal entries. And to date, we have found nothing that would suggest a criminal nefarious activity. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to find any, but I'm just telling you, we haven't uncovered anything of that nature yet. So, but as I say, well, let us finish the task. And if we have no interest other than serving the community on this project. We're not going to risk our reputations and to do anything otherwise. So, yeah, I agree with Mike. We're closing in on this. So,
Okay.
And Charlie, sorry, Ryan.
Yep.
Can you just convert? That's true that the auditor had recommended one adjustment to the ledger in order to correct the variance originally?
yeah, they did, yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and I just would say that, that we were uncomfortable with that approach without going through the process that we are currently engaged in.
Okay. So what was recommended, just for the sake of clarity, is the auditors were recommending to effectively write off the variance and adjust the accounts down by that much.
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of offsetting amounts in different funds. It was a matter of more the starting balances were probably wrong. And that there are some entries that are also, wrong. And so at the end of the day, after, extended, a period of time went by, the difference is what they found. The work that's being done right now is to understand what generated that difference, and also hopefully close the difference to some extent. And in terms of free cash, the other is, it was always the intention of the board to replenish the stabilization fund as soon as we get free cash certified and can go to a town meeting to do that. So, all right, John.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, I very much appreciate the approach that this team is taking, I think it's far more responsible than the idea of just writing off the variance. To find out exactly what happened, because if we don't, the likelihood is, in my opinion, fairly high that the same thing will happen again. We have to know what happened in order to fix it. And I have full confidence in this team that we will have that information. And whatever's left over from that, we will then tackle trying to figure out what happened. So my hat's off to these efforts. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? Okay, seeing none, moving on to board and committee appointments and updates to approve the promotion of Officer Jeremiah Valley. Chief Hurley, I know that Officer Valley is on as well. How are you?
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening to the board. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Again, good evening. Thank you again. I feel like every meeting between a hiring and a promotion, I'm here in front of you, but we are continuing to undergo changes here as the department keeps changing for the good. This evening before you tonight is the promotion to fill the retirement of Geraldine LaPence, who left back in September. This was done through a process with the patrolmen. They submitted a letter to myself, a interview panel with the lieutenant, the assistant town administrator, and the public works director was conducted with the candidates, and then one-on-one interviews with me. So first, I'd just like to thank the interview team, Lieutenant Larocco, the ATA, and the public works director. I think it was a very professional process, and I think the candidates learned a lot through it, along with other staff learnings a little bit about the police department. So through all of that this evening, I bring Officer Valley before you tonight as the selected candidate for sergeant. Jeremiah comes with extensive background. He's been in law enforcement for about 17 years now through the sheriff's department. He was a reserve summer officer here in Wellfleet around 2007 period, before he went over to Truro full-time as a police officer, promoted to sergeant in Truro before he came back to Wellfleet, which was a personal and professional choice for him. And we were glad to have Jeremiah come back. An outstanding police officer, very embedded in the community, himself and his family. So bring that before you this evening.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So I do appreciate that Officer Valley is willing to serve the town of Wellfleet. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion. So I move to approve the appointment of Officer Jeremiah Valley to the position of police sergeant.
Michael,
Good. We all second. Yeah. Good. We want you.
Okay,
Thank
I think
you.
that's a vote of confidence there. So,
Okay, but we got a vote. Hey,
yep, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, aye.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Yep. Thank you.
Great, thank you to the board.
Appearance of a conflict of interest for John Kumbler. So there is basically it's an appearance, which means that we just have to vote to accept it.
I have a motion.
Yep.
Yeah, I and I sent it to Rebecca already. I move that, considering the facts that John Kumbler has provided on his section 23 (B) (3) disclosure form, that he has no actual conflict of interest in the performance of his official duties when acting on the Herring River Restoration Project as a member of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, second. Roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
Well, I did have a question about it.
Okay.
if he has property that's potentially affected by a later phase of this, can you address that, Helen?
Yes, I can. And
Through
this came
you,
up, hold on a minute. This is only for phase one. I'm, as you know, very familiar with the project. And for example, I too have done a disclosure. In phase two, there is a remote chance that somebody might, I might appear to have a conflict, but phase two is not happening now. None of the permits that we're doing or anything else about it has to do with phase two. This is only about phase one of the project. And John Kumbler's disclosure makes it very clear that his property is not in any way affected by phase one, which is why I feel comfortable voting on this. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, John?
Well, not really, because phase one ultimately will lead to phase two.
No, it won't necessarily ultimately lead to phase two. It's to be hoped, but phase two is a whole other can of worms.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Take
you
your
know,
word for it.
that can be confirmed by Carol Ridley, who may or may not be here yet.
Okay. So with that, can I have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
John abstain.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 4-0 with one abstention. Okay, special municipal employees. So I actually have a correction or one more. So where is it? So is it so Nancy says that there needs to add a seasonal to the deputy shellfish constable as well.
Right.
You got that, Charlie? I see your thumbs up. All right, so are there any questions at this time about the special municipal employee list?
May I just tell the rest of the board about what this is?
Sure.
This list has to exist officially and hadn't been, as Ryan has pointed out in the past. It hadn't been updated for a really long time. First time I heard of it was in the early 2000s when it was okay, but there's some new groups and so forth, and we're all specials. Thank you.
Okay, John.
I just, pardon my ignorance, I wasn't really sure what this was about.
Yeah, so it's for this, so yeah.
Yeah, John, and,
Sorry.
actually, it could have been in our packets, but I will send everybody the state, definition of special municipal employee after the meeting. I have it,
Okay.
earmarked in my computer. And it has to do with numbers of hours and amount of pay and a few other things. It's a category, and I've known that I've been in it since 2001. We're all specials. Thank you.
So it matters for conflicts of interest disclosures and items of that matter. The last time that Wellfleet updated its list of special municipal employees was 1989.
So that's all we're doing is updating the list.
Yes,
Okay.
and Suzanne, is there a correction that you have here?
Yes, it's actually just housekeeping. It says COA, which
Okay.
in 1989 was a committee, but it should be the COA board at this point.
Okay, is it advisory board?
It's an advisory board,
Yeah,
yes.
so I think it's COA advisory board.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Charlie?
Yeah, so anyway, I was cleaning my office and I found the old list. That's what happened. So, and I think that just as a matter of process going forward, when you consider the appointment of a new board or committee, even if it's temporary or intermittent, then you'd want to update this list and at that time. So it should be just a matter of protocol going forward.
Okay. I believe I actually have an addition. 1 second. Mike, what's the official name of the housing trust?
Oh, the Housing Trust is the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust.
There you go.
Okay. So I would add that as well. Suzanne, do you still have your hand up? Or hand up again? Okay. No? Or yes?
Ryan?
Yep.
So the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is not the local housing trust. You need to cross that out.
Okay.
And at the bottom on the second column, under Housing Authority.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I'm not seeing, is the housing partnership in here?
They're actually,
Yeah, it's there. It's local housing partnership.
Oh, yeah, here it is. It's over in the other thing. Sorry about that.
I just went down the list on the website.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Helen? You put your hand back up.
No, I took it down again.
Oh, it's up. All right, so I move to approve the special municipal employee list for town of Wellfleet as amended.
second,
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Brian, I.
Paul and I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Cruiser replacement. So Chief Hurley. Let's see. Is he still on?
He is. He's muted if Rebecca can unmute him.
Done.
There
I
you go.
didn't know if he took the early exit or not.
No, I was trying, but they locked the door and I'm back in the office.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is just a follow-up conversation back in December on the capital plan. I provided the board with the requested information on the hybrid vehicles. I don't know if there's any questions or.
Are there questions from the board? John?
Yeah, I like the figures I saw on the savings, operational savings and, the greatly reduced carbon footprint, especially for idling vehicles. But I share your concern, as a mechanic, even though I'm not an automotive mechanic, I am a mechanic, regarding the highly specialized nature of these vehicles and the difficulty that could be encountered in having repairs done and having to go way off Cape to get them done. So, yeah, I'll listen to what you have to say there, but I do share that concern with you.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, my take on it is that the chief is recommending not doing this yet, and I'm fully supportive of it. Hello?
Actually, Chief, can you make your recommendation?
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My thought would be, because back last year, myself and the sergeant who deals with cruiser replacements, we were looking at the hybrid options. That's where the technology will be going in the future with these vehicles. He had just recommended until some of these things could get ironed out that we wait. And I think with another year coming up and the delays in getting some of these vehicles, that I think that if we did a 1-in-1 and started integrating one into the fleet and see how that goes, and just leaving the option to see the repairs and hopefully some on-Cape mechanics come around, that would hopefully offset that, and then moving forward we can continue to integrate them in the fleet.
Okay. And so where I am on this is I was surprised by how little the difference was in terms of cost between a hybrid and a standard. $3,500 is really low. And Ford basically calculates, Ford says that you'd save between, easily 1,000 gallons a year. Which is, at today's price, that pays for the cruiser within the first year, the savings there. But I'm willing to go with the one to replace one with a standard and one with a hybrid. I would actually like to replace both, but I understand the concerns. I do also wonder if there is some green communities grant monies out there that would further reduce the cost to the taxpayers to replace the cruisers as well. So
Yeah, Mr. Chair, when I last spoke with them back in June before the previous annual town meeting, they were looking for the town to close out the current green communities grant that's in place right now. So I'll look into that, see if that has been closed out. I believe Public Works may have been involved with that project. And what they do, what I was told, what they will do is pay the difference, which would roughly be, I believe, around $3,500 for the difference in the vehicle.
okay, if they're paying for the difference, then I'd actually like to upgrade both or have both as hybrid electrics, but Suzanne, Ryan.
Hi. Okay, so I sit on the Energy and Climate Action Committee, and I was involved in the last cycle of the Green Communities Grant. And that has indeed been completed. So Wellfleet is eligible to apply again. And this next grant cycle starts in January. And there are 2 application deadline dates. One is in April and one is in October. In addition to that, there are other means of funding that could match the Green Communities grant for this or be used independently. So I encourage you to really look into that. And our subcommittee, our little grant subcommittee on the Energy and Climate Action Committee would be glad to work with you on that.
Okay, John.
Yeah, I would, my sentiment is to be in favor of replacing both of them, like you say. My only concern is what happens if we do have problems, even if there are problems under the warranty, with either or both of them, and then find that due to the current supply chain issues, we can't get the parts. That would be my cautionary note on doing both of them.
Okay, John.
Which John?
Or no, Mike, sorry, your hand's still up.
Yeah, I was just wondering if, I drive a hybrid vehicle, and this is my first hybrid vehicle, but I wouldn't trade it for a full gas vehicle again, and I'm not sure about Ford reliability, but I know that hybrid vehicles have been proven to be as reliable generally as gas vehicles. They've been on the market for a while. I don't know particularly with Ford, maybe there's issues. If it's one issue that's recurring, that would seem to be a problem with the company. But I just think that, as far as it's going here, we need to start taking steps in the right direction. And I guess I'm not convinced that they're less reliable than gas vehicles. And I haven't found anything to that nature, in research over the last week as far as online and reliability scores. But it is a different vehicle. It is a police cruiser. Does spend a lot of time idling too. So having that electrical power system, really could save a lot more fuel than even what's advertised, because when you're idling on the electrical system, you're not burning any fuel, so those times when you're sitting there, keeping your vehicle warm, you're barely burning fuel. So I think it's the right direction to go. And if we can get grant funding, I'd prefer to replace 2 with hybrids. I just think that, as long as they can be serviced on the Cape. The hybrid system, I don't think should be failing, you know?
So right now they can't be serviced on the Cape. The electric. Chief Early, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah,
The
no,
servicing?
yeah, right now we were in touch, the sergeant was in touch with Chatham Ford, and right now the nearest certified mechanic is Hanover at the moment. And again, that was why looking into it, you know, to do the one-in-one and begin integrating it into the fleet. And again, I mean, I don't have 10, 15 cars here. If 2 out of the 4 line cars are replaced and we do encounter issues, that's 50% of what we drive here. So, you know, that is a concern. These vehicles having to go off Cape or be offline is a concern. About 10 years ago, Ford migrated from the sedan Crown Victorians, they used to be called, into the SUV. And there were 2 to 3 years of hiccups and problems and newer solutions. So I think they're getting there. I did poll the Cape Chiefs just to make sure I wasn't offline by too much. And there's still a little concern out there. So again, I think if we get one in the fleet and can go from there and no issues, then we will continue to migrate over to the hybrid for the remainder of the fleet over the years.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, very soon, there are going to be garages that are going to be able to fix hybrid vehicles. Right now, Hanover is an hour and a half minimum, 80.1 miles from Wellfleet. And let's not forget, it would have to be somebody on staff driving it there. And if the vehicle has to be left there to be repaired, and they all have to be repaired sooner or later, then that person either stays there for hours and hours or whatever, or somebody else has to be there to drive them back, or what? They get on a bus? I don't know. Hold on, let me finish, please. There's a reason I don't have a hybrid vehicle yet, and it's mainly because getting it fixed or anything to do with it systematically in an expert way, I would have to not be able just to go to my local garage. And Mike, I take my hat off to anybody that has them. Some of my best friends have them, and I look forward to having one, but not yet. Not until we can get it fixed closer than Hanover. Hour and a half away, 80.1 miles. Thank you.
Carol? Meg, sorry. Can you unmute Carol?
Thank you, Maginot. I work with Suzanne on the Energy Committee on grants. Point of clarification, is each department in town that has vehicles responsible for figuring out how to maintain them? Or is there any coordination of maintenance for the town?
The DPW does service some of the vehicles, but they wouldn't be able to service these, I don't think. Chief Hurley, any input?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. The Department of Public, I've been here 27 years. They've never fixed our vehicles. They don't have the staff. We outsource all of our work.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I would say that the voters of Wellfleet did kind of commit us to reduce the town's carbon emissions at the last town meeting. They put in it's in the general bylaw that we are supposed to reduce the carbon, or make all practical efforts to reduce the town's carbon footprint. And if these save over 1,000 gallons a year, I mean, that's $3,500 a year minimum. That more than covers any staff time that would be involved in getting them to a service station that's a little bit further away. With the supply chain disruptions that are happening right now, there's no guarantee that any modern vehicle, regardless of whether it's hybrid or not, will have the parts quickly to service them, especially if it involves any of the computer chips, which modern cars, I think the number is well over, I mean, you're talking thousands of chips. So if a part's not available, it's not available, and that goes for every vehicle right now. But with that, John?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the hybrid vehicles are several orders of magnitude more complex than non-hybrid vehicles. Also, there was an item in one of the submissions by the chief regarding, I can't remember which department it was off Cape. I think it was an off Cape department that had a plug-in hybrid that discovered that operating their lights and computers and other stuff that only police cars are likely to have, it didn't seem to have the battery capacity to sustain that. I don't know if that's true of non-plug-in hybrids or not, but I would support a motion to replace one of the vehicles currently with a hybrid. I don't think I could get behind replacing two of them.
Yeah, so just a point of clarification there. These are dedicatedly designed police interceptors. This isn't a conversion of a pre-existing plug-in. They've been dedicated, they've been purposely designed as police cruisers, so they do have all the power that is required to run the equipment. Mike?
Yeah, I just also want to clarify, the only thing that can't be serviced on the vehicle at any shop is actually the hybrid system, not brakes, fuel lines, tires, exhaust. All that stuff would be able to be just serviced at a regular service station. The hybrid technology really pertains to the hybrid fuel engine system, and that's what's not serviceable. I don't know if there's any other part that's not serviceable other than that. Chief Hurley, do you know that? Because I take mine into the shop regularly. It's a regular shop.
Yeah, honestly, not 100%, just touching base with the mechanic at Chatham Ford. Because again, the first 2 to 3 years of these vehicles are typically under warranty. So, we try to recoup any possible cost through warranty. Again, the bottom line, I'm not fighting hybrids here. I'm just trying to be duly responsible for these vehicles and having them available for the staff. That's all. I mean, wasn't looking to, anyways.
Yep. Lillian Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak in favor of a hybrid vehicle. I've owned, I'm on my second hybrid, and it's just because I traded in. They've been extremely maintenance-free. I've been reading about them for, I guess, 6 years now, and I would endorse trying this and perhaps starting with one vehicle. I think that you'll find that they're extremely maintenance-free. They're extremely reliable, and I've been looking into this on behalf of the Energy and Climate Action Committee as well, which I'm a member of. So, thank you.
Okay, Suzanne Ryan, and I'm going to call the question.
Okay, I'm just throwing this out there. Tesla, from my understanding, services a lot of police fleets around the country for purely electric vehicles. Have you looked into that at all? Is that up for consideration?
That is not tonight. And I can say that for line duty cars, they need to have the ability to operate when there is power outages affecting the town and respond effectively. And that goes for all emergency response vehicles. So I think we're going to have to try two motions, see where the board is. So I move to replace both of the both of the cruisers up for replacement in this year's capital improvement plan with hybrid electric vehicles. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote?
Janet, no.
John, no.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, no.
Okay, and then could somebody make the second motion?
I move to replace one police vehicle with a hybrid
Helen, second.
And the other one conventional. So,
and the other one conventional. Okay.
okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right, so I actually missed one. So we have to, so this is and thank you, Chief, for your time tonight. Sorry.
No, thank you to the board. And we'll be, again, we will keep looking into this and exploring the grant opportunities. I'll work with the climate and energy group on that.
Okay, Rebecca, I can't share the screen. Okay, and can you unmute Lara as well?
All set.
Okay,
Taylor.
yeah, I can't share the screen. So, so this is a MOT, which stands for Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism grant that the Wellfleet Chamber is applying for. Lara, why don't you do a quick introduction or presentation there? Sorry.
You can share now, Ryan.
Chair. Happy New Year, everybody. My name is Lara Henry. I'm the Executive Director of the Wellfleet Chamber of Commerce, and the Wellfleet Chamber participates pretty actively with a group called the LC3, and that stands for the Local Cape Chambers Collaborative. And so twice a month, we all meet together. It's kind of like a support group or like a way to share resources. It's a very close knit group of all of us, all 15 towns on the Cape. And as a group, we are applying for a MOT recovery grant. And we are specifically looking for money to, or asking for money to produce or publish each town's guidebook. And so we're each reaching into our towns and asking for support from different entities who would support, tourism. And so that's what this letter is all about.
Okay, and just to clarify for the board, the due date for this is tomorrow.
There's definitely wiggle room with that, but that was the date, that I think they gave us so that we all have a couple extra days. So if it takes another couple extra days, that's okay too.
Okay, Janet?
So do you want one signature from the board, or do you want each of us to respond?
Right, sorry to interrupt. Right now,
That's fine.
especially with John being in, John, where are you?
What?
Yeah, what state are you in?
I'm in Virginia.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be able to get all the board to sign it, and they need a relatively quick turnaround. So I was hoping tonight that we would, approve sending the letter and authorize the chair to sign it, just for the sake of getting it turned around quickly.
Okay.
Helen?
Yeah, I'm in support of this, except that I really hate the first sentence because it's one of the major life and blood of our communities, but it isn't the only one. And, shellfishing is really at the heart of the town too. It's our biggest single industry. Thank you.
Okay. So I move to approve the letter as drafted and to authorize the chair to sign it.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. You'll get that tomorrow. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you.
So, stop share. Okay. Where are we? We are on Long Pond Stairs replacement, Suzanne.
Okay.
Howdy.
Howdy. Thank you very much. This is a follow-up agenda item to my original one requesting that the stairs be removed, and following the vote of the board to repair them rather than remove them, I made a site visit to the Long Pond with Peter Williams from the DPW, and we came up with the recommended steps in the memo that I submitted. It's very straightforward. The next step after I get the approval for the overall project from the select board would to go to the Conservation Commission and make sure that my recommendations fall within the parameters of their environmental regulations. But first tonight with this board.
Yeah. Are there any questions regarding this?
Yes.
Helen?
Yeah, through you to Suzanne, thank you so much for adjusting the level of the stairs. It works so well at Great Pond. But I wonder, and there may be something I don't know about the rationale for putting rocks, pebbles over the area that's, been eroded around the pine roots and the pine trees as you walk down. I find that kind of thing on a hill very slippery to walk on, but there may be some rationale for using rocks in that area that I don't know about, as opposed to just some way to retain it or simply to fence it off so people go all the way down to the bottom.
Suzanne?
Yeah, the reason that Peter and I are recommending the crushed stone is that the roots themselves are exposed and therefore they're a trip and fall hazard. Rather than go directly diagonally down the hill, which is where most people go on foot, we are recommending that we extend the fence all the way to where the fence ends for the handicapped entrance, and people would be directed down that path parallel to the fence and then be able to walk to the pond or the grassy area as they saw fit. So I think that having gravel, that's a much more level access, and it would solve two problems. It would avoid the trip and fall roots, and it would protect those roots that people are walking over by covering them with gravel, which allows the water to perk and it wouldn't be a runoff issue.
And that was in response to your comments at the previous meeting, Helen.
Yeah, as a frequent user, very frequent user. Thank you.
Okay, so Mike?
Yeah, I'm just curious about the 4x4 timbers. That's typically not what stairs are made from. And Helen mentioned Great Pond. Those are 6x6 landscape timbers. So
No.
I'm a little confused as to why the standard step height is being reduced to 4-inch rather than 6-inch, which is actually 5.5 is what a landscape timber is.
It was at Helen's request.
Through you, Ryan, may I? Yeah, so Suzanne, at Great Pond, you went and measured, and that is the 4-inch is what the riser is, correct?
I did not measure Great Pond. I was talking to Peter Williams and I said that you were concerned about the height of the riser at the timbers that are currently in the steps. And he said, well, we could drop it from 6x6 to 4x4.
Okay. Whatever it is, Great Pond works perfectly. I don't know how high that is, but whatever that is what I think should be at Long Pond, because it is very much easier to go up and down on that.
Let me ask this.
Thank you.
Are you talking about the steps that originate from the parking lot or the steps at Great Pond that originate from the road?
From the road.
All right, well, that's why I'm asking, because there's two sets of stairs at Great Pond.
Yeah, I'm only referring to the wooden stairs that were carefully thought about at the time in terms of elders and people with walking difficulties uses. And I know that because a person who was involved in that
Helen.
told me about it.
Okay,
I'm done.
so I do believe those are 6x6s, but Mike?
Well, the ones from the parking lot are 6-inch by 6-inch.
Yeah.
Standard landscape timber. They're used in steps. From the parking lot down, those are 6x6. I don't know about the other ones, but I've never seen stairs made out of 4x4s.
Yeah, that's a really low rise. It's actually hard to walk on
A
sometimes.
tripping hazard.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the stairs that lead from the parking lot at Great Pond at all. We're talking about a set of wooden stairs going from the road, which you cross directly from the parking lot at Long Pond. Those stairs.
All right,
What you're
Helen,
talking
you are
about.
not recognized by the chair. I did not call on you. Mike, I believe you are still talking.
Oh, yeah, no, I would just prefer that they're standard stair height. I think it's safer.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, well, Mike thought we were talking about the dirt and then the long pieces of wood that come from the parking lot at Great Pond. And that was not what was being recommended by me as a perfect stair height. I find that access to Great Pond to be dangerous and I don't use it. Thank you. It's all wood on the other end.
Okay, so I move to approve the stair replacement as presented, except for the following, that the replacement timbers shall be 6x6 timbers.
Second?
Okay, roll call vote.
So what was it that the DPW recommended? I'm between why are we changing what they recommended?
This
I get it.
wasn't recommended by the DPW. This was at the request of Helen.
No, it wasn't. You're talking about a different set.
No, the 4x4, Helen.
Wait,
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
could. The existing timbers at Long Pond are 6x6s. So when we looked at them, Peter recommended dropping them to 4x4s to reduce the height of the rise. I don't have a preference one or the other, but I would like some clarity from the board tonight.
Okay, so what was your motion, Ryan?
That they be 6x6 timbers as opposed by 4x4, which is about a 3.5 inch rise for a 4. A 6 would be 5.5.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Okay.
I vote whatever.
Well, it's a roll call vote, so I do need an aye or a nay. So roll call vote, please.
Michael, and I'll just say that I've been a landscaper for years and years and years since I was young, and every stairway that's ever been made that I've ever had any experience making has been with 6-inch timbers or a standard, at least 5-inch rise.
John?
Aye.
Okay, Janet?
Aye.
Brian, aye.
Helen, nay, because I think that they should be wood all the way down. Thank you.
They are wood.
No, they're
wooden
not.
timbers. They're wooden.
They are not all wood. They are.
I don't know.
Through you to Suzanne. Can you confirm that the stairs that you're recommending, and that's fine, it's a vote, right? Are going to have earth the way they are now. There's earth and then there's a 6x6, right?
You want is what you're looking for is decking, Helen?
It's not, I don't know what it's called, but it resembles, it is the
Okay,
same.
so
like
she's
the
looking for
stairs
decking.
at it's the stairs at Great Pond that are all made of wood, not from the parking lot, but from the farther east end. That is what I've been referring to all along. They are safe. They are easy to maintain compared to the others, which always get eroded out. And that's what I was talking about. But if you want to just replace what's there and make it a bit, reconstruct it, that's going to be the vote, I guess. I
Okay,
think
so-
it's a misunderstanding.
Helen, okay, so Suzanne, I believe she's looking for decking, is what it sounds like.
That was not my understanding, and what I am proposing is merely replacing the existing stairs with wood that is new and whole and not eaten away, but we're not going to have a constructed stairway like that is Great Pond, because that requires going to the Architectural Access Board in Boston for a special variance, because the building code for that kind of steps is the same as interior steps, and you can't place them outside without a variance. So it won't happen in my working lifetime if that's what you're looking for.
Okay. So at this point, the motion's been moved and carried. So I'd like to move on. I believe those questions have been answered. So thank you, Suzanne. But you're still up here, so you're not off the hook yet.
I'm not off the hook yet, I'm aware. This is
So-
a really nice agenda item, the next
Yep.
one that's coming up.
1
Yeah,
second.
yeah, it's
So it's the discussion of the trash collection at Wellfleet beaches. So
right. They're basically beach cleanup stations that allow people who are walking the beach or visiting the beach to help clean up the beach. And it was a young woman named Peyton Flanagan, who was born and raised in Wellfleet, saw the emplacement at Head of the Meadow in Truro, and had found a local business that was willing to fund it, and wanted to know what I thought, if I thought Wellfleet would want this kind of, private business sponsored opportunity at the beaches. And I spoke to Jay Norton, the DPW director, about it, because in Truro, the DPW builds the stations, puts them up, and makes sure the bags are replaced as needed. And for lack of adequate bodies in the summer, it seemed more reasonable to put an alternative system in, which is the plastic baskets in a metal rack with appropriate signage, and a trash can there for people to put it in when they get back. That just says, please take a basket, pick up the trash, and then put it in the appropriate receptacles. So I went back to Peyton, and Peyton said she was totally willing to go along with this for Wellfleet. And that's where we are right now, is that we're recommending, the DPW director and I are recommending that if this is approved, that it would be the plastic, like the kind of baskets you pick up off the rack at CVS, that kind of basket, a rack, and then appropriate sign about who had donated it and how you use. I mean, it seems sort of counterintuitive. You have to put a list of how to use this basket, but we could make it the sign appropriately informative for people.
okay, so I see Peyton's on here, so I'd like to give her the opportunity to
Please.
speak to this as well. So can you unmute her, please, Rebecca?
Yep, give me 1 second. Okay, she's gonna mute.
Yep.
Hello,
Good evening.
good evening. So I'm very supportive of this because growing up here, I always saw lots of trash, especially while walking along, excuse me, while walking along the dunes. Something I would commonly grow up with, and this was something I did until recently, is I would drive down Cornhill Beach with my dad, or we'd go for beach walks all the time, which we still do the beach walk part. And we'd always see trash all on the dunes and in the beaches. And it would be really nice to pick it up. And when I went to Head of Meadow that day, I was able to use that bag, and I was able to get a lot of trash out and put it in the trash can. It felt really good. And I think more people would pick up trash if they had the opportunity and materials to do so. Since not everybody brings like an extra trash bag to the beach.
Okay, well, I know that I, for one, often pick up stuff as I come back to the parking lot or something, especially in the off season. So, John?
Yeah, what's been through you to Ms. Flanagan? what's been your experience where you've done this before, as far as people making off with these baskets? Has that been a problem?
So in my experience, no, I've only done it once when I went to Head in the Meadow about early December. Was that system. I've always brought trash bags with me. That was one of the few times I forgot. But I do think it would be very nice and possibly help tourists also pick up after themselves, since I noticed a lot more during the summer. There's a lot more trash.
So you don't think there would be a problem with people helping themselves to these baskets for other purposes?
Okay. I don't.
I probably have a more jaded view of human nature.
Because I mean, the bags, you could be like, oh, accidentally toss it into your big bag and bring all your stuff in, and then just accidentally take it. I think the baskets are bigger and bulkier and a bit harder to accidentally take.
Okay, I guess
Yeah.
I have a somewhat more jaded view of human nature, I guess.
No, I understand that. That was a worry of mine. But I mean, my only issue, the only thing I can think of is the bags may be easier to replace than the baskets, just in terms of cheaperness for the town and for whoever sponsors it. As town decides to maintain them in that such a way.
Yeah, I mean,
But I do think the baskets will actually not be stolen accidentally as much due to them just being a larger size.
okay. Helen?
Yeah, I'm totally against the baskets. They'll get blown away. They'll get, some people will absentmindedly put them in their cars. Some people will deliberately put them in their cars. And I'm also against the bags. I've been collecting trash, and a lot of other people have, ever since I can remember. And you just drag as much as you can from the beach. And we now have carry in, carry out working up to a point. Suzanne can tell me I'm wrong or not, but I was hoping for that for years. The park insists on it. And I think this will be yet another thing with respect for the DPW's workload in the summer, picking up trash on the beaches and whatnot. I used to date a guy who did that on the DPW back in my 20s. So anyways, here's the point. I don't think we should have anything like this. And I just want to remind everybody how those bags for pick up the poop for dogs are almost never, there's never anything in them. And it's just yet another thing that doesn't get stocked and another thing for the DPW to do. And I think that dragging it off the beach and either putting it in your own car, which I often do, works very well. Thank you. I did that this evening. I mean, this afternoon, not this evening. Bye. Thank you.
Okay, Janet?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I can see that there would be some problems with it. You never know. So maybe start with a small amount, and maybe people will finally, or everyone will finally get the idea of bringing trash off the beach, not stealing them, not accidentally putting them in the car, and just see how it goes. And if the DPW is having a problem with it, I'm sure Mr. Norton will tell us. But it's a good idea. Anything to help get trash out of the beach, out of town. Thank you.
Kathleen?
Am I unmuted?
Now you are. You're good.
Good evening, Peyton and Kathleen Bacon. I applaud your initiative for this. I think it's a great idea. I have a few suggestions that maybe the board and yourself would consider. One is we have a rock solid recycling committee. I think that you should try and work with them on this initiative of yours. They've been, spearheading the carry in, carry out program for Wellfleet. I also think that there's a possibility that the recycling committee can steer you to getting this grant funded, and the baskets and whatever you might need for materials paid for. And my third suggestion is to consider a pilot program. Pick a beach that you feel, gets a considerable amount of trash during our high summer months, and start there. Pick one beach as a pilot.
I will mention there
plus-
is a beach I was thinking of starting off with. I was thinking Mayo Beach, as I do see a lot of trash on it. And it doesn't help that it's right along several restaurants and people leave bottles there. I've seen that. I've seen lots of plastic bottles. I've seen just food, wrappers, bags, pieces of plastic, old kids' toys that are shredded and dunes. Like sticking out.
I agree with you. I see a lot of trash at Mayo Beach myself. I'm
Yeah.
usually there for breakfast every morning. However, our DPW has, I believe, 5 trash receptacles at Mayo. So you kind of, if they can't put it in the 5 trash receptacles that are there at the beach, I'm not sure they're going to be using the baskets. But
Okay.
these are suggestions, and I really support and applaud you in this this effort. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Mike?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think baskets over bags, because we don't want bags blowing out or in storms. I think baskets are a great idea. I think, the look and the feel of whatever the rack is will kind of, if it's well designed, then people will put them back. If it looks like something nice and people appreciate, that they can use it to pick up trash. I think it's great. I think starting with a pilot program is probably a good idea. I'd kind of like to see it at an oceanside beach. So maybe one ocean and maybe one bayside, ones where I'm thinking more like along the lines of what the impediments are for people bringing trash or going down to pick up trash, is like dunes, and like maybe Duck Harbor is also a kind of place where, people walk way out there. They don't necessarily think about it. And then they're like, oh, I'd pick up this trash, but I don't want to drag it all the way back, So those are my 2 suggestions, maybe like Lookout Hollow and Duck Harbor as like a pilot.
Okay.
Okay.
Perhaps starting with Lookout Hollow, as that's more popular and more beach in terms of the summer. A lot more people seem to go there, at least growing up. That's what I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think we should try it and see how well it works and whether people return the baskets, and if there's trash receptacles up at their car. I certainly just don't want people bringing baskets of trash up to the parking lot and just leaving it in the parking lot to blow around again. So there just have to be good signage, I think, and people know what to do.
And I will mention, I am in school for graphic design, third year, and I do illustration. I will happily design those signs at no cost if needed.
But I do think it's good, probably talk to the recycling committee, as Kathleen suggested too, because
So I think this is a great idea and no brainer. It makes total sense to, give it a try, see if it works. If all the baskets get stolen, they all get stolen, and that's that. We shouldn't be concerned about, hypothetical situations when there are maybes and there's not really a downside to them. If it succeeds, we get more trash off the beaches. If it doesn't mean anything. It just means that it didn't work. So, John?
Yeah, at worst, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, at worst, realistically speaking, the most damage I see to those baskets is them getting covered in stickers. The sign getting covered in some stickers. Like you see a lot of the sign posts, like when you turn to town, heading like towards Provincetown. That's the worst I realistically see in terms of that.
Yeah. So John, then Suzanne, then I'm going to call a question.
Okay, yeah, I agree with Mike. I think baskets are the way to go, and yeah, why not give it a try? The last thing I think we need is more disposable plastic, so I think that going with the baskets makes sense.
Suzanne?
Just one more, in this time of the pandemic, I'm much more comfortable with plastic baskets that if they're stored outside will get sanitized by time and the sun on them, as opposed to fabric bags that could be less easy to sanitize between uses.
Okay, so I move to approve the placement of sponsored beach trash disposal stations at Wellfleet beaches where practical under the supervision of the beach and DPW directors.
Second,
Second, I have a question, Ryan. I'm sorry. That hasn't been brought up. It's a question. It addresses.
Okay.
So some of the trash that gets left on the bay beaches and the ocean beaches above the tide line very often is dog waste. And I don't think, I always take my own bags, but I don't think that people that collect their own dog's waste or other dog's waste should be putting them in plastic.
Point of order, Helen.
I'm talking about trash.
No.
Can there also be bags
All
for
right,
dog waste?
point of order. All right. That's entirely different.
Okay, we're talking about using.
Yeah, it's different,
trash.
Helen. So
It's not different.
yeah, it's point of
All right.
order. So the
In your
motion's
opinion.
been made, it's been seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen abstain.
Okay.
All
right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peyton. This is great. Thanks for the initiative.
Of course.
Okay. This is the next order of business is amending the funding source to meet Wellfleet's in kind or potential in kind match for Ducks Unlimited grant. So Carol and I think somebody from Ducks Unlimited was here. Yeah,
They
Sarah
are, yeah.
Flemings. Carol, you're muted.
Hang on one second.
All right, Carol.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Carol Ridley, coordinator for the Herring River Restoration Project. And so I guess we're here this evening to talk about the form of match that the town has pledged as a 10% match partner for a $2 million grant proposal to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service NAWCA program, North American Wetlands Conservation Act program. And I should note that this proposal was submitted through Ducks Unlimited as the actual applicant, and Sarah Fleming from Ducks Unlimited is here and can provide more detail on some of the mechanics of the grant process. But just to maybe provide a little context around this proposed motion. So I want to make it clear that this request for $2 million that would be used primarily for implementation actions around the restoration project, such as vegetation management prior to the start of construction. That proposal has been submitted, but has not been awarded. I just want to be very clear. There's no grant award at this time, and we don't anticipate hearing, conclusively until sometime this spring. Although the proposal has been submitted and is under review by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so if the proposal has been submitted with the inclusion of an amount of $200,000 in value, match value from the town that is constituted by a pledge of grant funds the town has received from the state through the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Act program and the MVP program. Now, at the time the NAWCA grant proposal was submitted, we talked quite a bit about different options for match. And the town had not yet received the MVP grant award. So we had to talk about alternative grant opportunity, match opportunities. And so the option of potentially using the value of conservation parcels, also was discussed at that time as an alternate form of match. Since the NACA proposal was submitted to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the town subsequently did receive the MVP grant in an amount of around $590,000. And those grant funds are being used for, or are in process of being used for final design drawings and bid packages for the different construction elements of the Herring River Restoration Project. So, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, if an award from NACA is received, U.S. Fish and Wildlife would need to approve any change in the form of that match from other than what was in the actual proposal that they would be reviewing. The option of including conservation or using conservation parcels in lieu of the grant match, so that would need to be okayed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And if they provided that okay, there would be several due diligence steps required to appraise those parcels. And Sarah can talk to some of the specifics of this, but there'd be several actions that would be needed to quantify the value and verify the conservation status and things of that sort. Those actions would cost money for appraisals, for example, for which there currently is not a budget. Potentially grant funds could be used for those actions. However, that too would need to be approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They would have to agree that some grant funds could be made available for those purposes. And to the extent that any of those funds were used for those purposes of due diligence, they would be not available for the restoration activities. So basically would take money from the restoration activities to pay for those other activities. So, and as far as the MVP grant funds and what it means to utilize a portion of those funds for match. So 200,000 of the 590 roughly of that grant amount has been pledged as match. That in no way alters the use of those funds from MVP. I mean, those funds will be used as proposed, which is for the final design and bid specifications for the project elements. It really is just pledging that value. And it's only a portion of that value. So it's 200 of the 590. So there's still about $390,000 of unpledged value, if you will, if the town were to find another grant opportunity for which it could use that grant value as match. In terms of utilizing the MVP grant for match for construction funding, if that's what's contemplated, that is not certain. Each grant program has its own requirements for what qualifies as match, whether the activities are eligible for which the match proposal, if the use of the design and bid packages would be eligible is a question. There's also a question of whether those funds would be spent before they could qualify as match. So those are fiscal year 22 funds, the MVP funds. They need to be spent by June 30th of 2022. So I spoke today with our representative from the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is one of the grant programs we are talking with currently in the town has reached out to for construction funds. And it was highly questionable that MVP money could be used as grant match for the NRCS watershed grant program. So that's just one example. We have to look at that on a case-by-case basis, but I don't think it's certain that the MVP funds would be available or eligible, I should say, as match for construction funding if that's what's contemplated. The last point I want to make is We do have, we have identified through the state's support through Division of Ecological Restoration, they have budgeted, the state has budgeted $14 million over 5 years that will serve as non-federal match for any federal construction grants that may be granted to the Herring River Restoration Project. So we have, for example, been working with our state partners to identify the non-federal grant match that would be needed for initial year's construction work, say in 2022. So I just wanted to provide that context, and as I mentioned, Sarah's here and can answer any other questions about the grant program. But perhaps, you know, the board might consider kind of putting this question on hold until A, we find out if there's an award, which would be this spring, and B, look a little further into whether or not the MVP would be eligible as match for any other grants.
I'd like to give Sarah Fleming a chance to speak because she had her hand up. So Rebecca, can you unmute her?
I think she should be good. Hang on. Yep.
Hi, everyone. I think we got it. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here very quickly. I really just put my hand up to acknowledge that I was here, and so I appreciate the opportunity. Carol summed up everything really well. The only thing I will supplement is, although we do not have the official award letter, the proposal has been voted and approved. The only condition right now is we're waiting on the appropriation of the federal funding. So if all things move forward, we can be assured the funding is going to come forward. We're just waiting on the award letter. So I would put money on it, so to speak, 99% confident we are going to receive the funding. So that is good news. We've just been asked to not formally announce it until we have the award letter in hand, which Carol has already alluded to. That will be coming in April after the Migratory Bird Conservation Commission meets and finalizes the agreement. And then the only other supplement I would add is Carol indicated there was some additional costs that would be tied to any additional substitutions or modifications to the proposal if we were to modify our original pledged amount towards a land acquisition. And I just wanted to, I guess, quickly run off a few of the additional costs that would be tied to that. We are required per the NACA standards to get a yellow book appraisal. This is a more rigorous appraisal, which can run upwards to over $5,000 to $6,000. It is a federal requirement. We really have no ability to change that particular appraisal process. It must also be reviewed. We are also required to get surveys of the property, as well as any other due diligence that would be required to go through the title review process, as well as file appropriate federal restrictions to the deed, notice of grant restriction. So as Carol indicated, there are several other steps, all of which have dollar values tied to it that are currently not budgeted if we so choose to move in an alternative direction. So I will also add that the proposal was reviewed with, you're scoring some additional points with the partnership of the town being incorporated with the Lara Restoration Project. So that did help with the scoring. So I'll just throw that out there as well. And at this point, I will open it up to questions and thank Carol for her very, very detailed and summary of where we stand right now.
Okay. So couldn't the town use the MVP funds to fund the appraisals?
I'm not sure what the MVP funds are allocated towards with regards to the grant. So I can't answer that question. I don't know the source.
Carol?
Yeah, I believe I can. Those funds are specifically for resilience, community resilience funding. So they would be unless the town were to go to the state and seek an amendment, if they were willing to amend the grant agreement. The grant agreement is to use the funds for completion of the final design plans and bid packages. And honestly, we'd have a problem if we took funds from there, because the budgets are tight to complete that essential work, which is needed for us to be able to start construction next year. So I think that would be problematic from a budgeting standpoint, and also possibly not possible from a state standpoint.
Okay. So, Helen?
Yeah, we have quite a lot of land that is not under the Conservation Commission's management, but was purchased by and owned by a private group called the Wellfleet Conservation Trust, who often works with the town to obtain properties. Does what they have, is it possible for what they have since 2019 to be included in this matching grant amount?
Carol?
Yes, in fact, the Conservation Trust very generously donated the value of a parcel that had been donated, or actually in concert with Miss Jackie Faust, who made the donation. That what's referred to as the Herring River Overlook has been counted. The value of that donation has been counted as match. It's a rather significant component of the proposal, as a matter of fact. So that is already baked into the proposal.
So that's good.
It is indeed. Yes, we're extremely fortunate and grateful for the generous support of Ms. Faust and the Wellfleet Conservation Trust in this effort, for sure.
Okay, so just so that I totally understand, it's not only what the town has designated as Conservation Commission management property still owned by the town, it's also the properties that have been donated, that have been bought by this private organization. That's what you just said. Is that
So
correct?
this is specific to Ducks Unlimited at this time. So
Yeah,
Carol?
I realize that, but Carol.
Yeah. Just to clarify, so it's not all the parcels. No, it's the Herring River Overlook parcel, the value of that donated parcel that was included as match in this proposal. It's directly adjacent to the Herring River, project area. And the grant proposal does not include any other Wellfleet Conservation Trust parcels or any town parcels.
Got it. Thank you.
Mike?
So are we talking about the amount of funding for appraisal for each individual lot that would be put up? This is for Sarah.
Yes. So what would end up happening is for each parcel, basically landowner or tax parcel, we would be required to have all the due diligence I referenced previously be included in those parcels to meet the NACA standards. We would be assessing the value of the land to be used as the match, which we're looking to try to reach the minimum pledged amount of $200,000. But however many parcels that would take to acquire that, we would be required to meet all those due diligence for each parcel.
At around $6,000 per parcel?
No, it would be more than that. It's about $6,000 for the appraisal, plus about $3,000 for the appraisal review, plus the cost of the survey and additional staff time and filing and recording fees. So it can get upwards to close to $20,000 a parcel, depending on the complexity of the parcel and the other costs that are associated with it.
Okay, and are these parcels, like if they're not a buildable parcel, if they're already in conservation, would that reduce the value of it? Or is it just based on, I mean, is it sort of the same best and highest use appraisal that you'd get for any sort of contract? Okay.
Yeah, it would be, but it has conservation restrictions on it. It likely may not be eligible. And it, as you indicated, it really is the best use of the parcel based on the current site conditions.
Yes.
Right, because it's already restricted.
Except that the Ducks Unlimited grant allows you to go back to 2019, correct?
Yes, we are allowed to go back to 2 years to parcels that have been acquired from 2 years from the date of submission, which would take us back to January of 2019.
Okay. Do we have any particular parcels that are?
Yeah, I mean, we have ones, I mean, map 40 parcel 184 was assessed at almost $900,000. So.
I will add, I don't know what these parcels look like, but that is something we would have to look at as well, as not each parcel would necessarily be eligible. It would have to fall within the boundaries of the grant proposal that outlines that we originally put forward, which the town of Wellfleet includes. And it also would have to meet the NACA requirements. So we'll be looking for areas that, you know, provide wildlife habitat, that help with erosion and climate control, and basically meeting all the conditions of the original proposal. So just putting, like I said, we'd have to look at each individual tract to determine which ones met the proposal guidelines before we submitted to Fish and Wildlife Service for review.
Yeah, I can tell you that these are a mix of water, marsh and uplands, surrounding coastal uplands. Is what almost all these parcels are that were transferred. Some of them are just marsh, but some of them are both. Mike?
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say we should probably be looking into one single parcel to avoid paying $10,000 to $20,000 in appraisals.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, through you to Sarah. Sarah, there have been previous appraisals done on these different lots, and how recent do these appraisals have to be? I mean, in other words, if we have a perfectly good appraisal for 2018, of course, property values have changed. Do we have to do another one?
Yes, according to IRS standards, we have to have it done within 1 year.
Thank you.
We'd have to go back and reevaluate.
Thank you.
Okay. So where I am is I would much rather use parcels that we've already committed, rather than expending, you know, MVP funding that might be utilized elsewhere, and meeting some of the other grant matches. I don't know. I mean, even this year, we have 2 parcels coming up for this annual town meeting. The one thing that is kind of unique about Wellfleet is that, unlike a lot of towns, I mean, over the years, we've committed quite a few acres to the care of the Conservation Commission. It's actually unusual for basically every town meeting, we're committing a couple parcels. And that's really unusual when looking at other towns. A lot of towns don't commit any. So I don't know where the board is though. So are there comments from the board?
It looks like we need to contribute 200,000, right? 250
Yes.
or 200?
200.
200,000, but that's best and highest use. And these appraisals are assessed values, right?
Yes.
And so there's really no way of knowing how those are going to line up. Well, I don't know. There probably is a way of knowing to some degree, but best and highest use is a strange standard. So I think if there's a property that has enough upland that it could be potentially, I don't know what the size of these are, but I think we need to have somebody determine which of these parcels. That seems to me like map 4170, without looking at it, at 444 might fall into that 200,000 range when it's surveyed for best and highest use. But I'm just throwing darts out there looking at this list. I mean,
yeah, it would be better to use a parcel that has a really high appraisal.
Yeah.
That way, but a lot of these, some of those are buildable lots on Lieutenant Island that the town owned. So, John?
Yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. In theory, I'm just concerned, do we have that kind of money, given the town's circumstances, to do this?
What, $20,000?
I thought we were talking 200,000.
No, we just need to, sorry, excuse me, Ryan, but we just need to offer up a value of $200,000.
Oh, I
Which could
see.
be in
Okay.
land that we've already committed to conservation, as long as it's, within 2 years of now. So if we can
Okay.
find a parcel, we don't have to pony up any money except for the appraisal.
Okay, yeah, my mistake, sorry.
Carol, in a conversation I had with you earlier, you also said that the town could also count any appraisals as a in-kind portion of the town's commitments for the project as well. Is that correct?
I believe that if the town pays for them, Sarah might be in a better position to answer that, but not certainly if Fish and Wildlife funds were used for the appraisals, they wouldn't be considered match. But I don't know if another source of funding were identified to pay for the appraisals, if they would be considered match. Sarah? For you, Mr. Chair?
Yep. Sarah?
Thank you. Carol is correct. It can be used as match, but it would depend on the source of funding, as long as it's not federal in origin, nor it can have any ties to any kind of mitigation. If it would be eligible as match towards the grant as well, to meet the $200,000 commitment.
Okay. All right. So Carol?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, note that if the board chooses to go the route of using the land value, it would, as of today, I mean, assuming the grant's received, it would reduce the amount of funds available to the project by the amount that would be applied toward these due diligence steps. That would not be the case with the MVP grant, which is merely the pledge of a portion of that value, and would retain all of the funds for use for the project. I just want to, make the suggestion for the board's consideration that, this isn't a decision that needs to be made this evening. Obviously, it's your prerogative. But since there isn't immediately, to my knowledge, a grant that has been identified for which, and alternatively, the MVP could be used as match, we might just wait to see if that were, if that becomes the case, and make this decision at that time. But again, I offer that for your consideration. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I think that we should have used land value from the get-go. It's already a committed resource. And a lot of it is high value habitat, which is why it's been committed to the Conservation Commission. But where's the board, I guess, is where I'm at. So, John?
I think I put my hand back down. But,
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull the board and see where we are so that we can.
well, since you asked, I'm with you on that.
Okay, Helen?
Yes, I agree with what you've put forth, Ryan, and we might even be able to do it with just that one hunk, which has had a recent appraisal, I believe. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the benefits of using the grant money are that the town doesn't pay anything out of pocket. But that because the MVP money is going to be spent somewhere else, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. I'm not really sure. I guess I'm not sure what's the best way to go, and so I would just look toward to a recommendation from.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. The MVP grant is for climate adaptation, correct?
Yes, climate community resilience. So the town has an MVP approved plan And the priority action in that plan is the restoration of salt marsh to improve the community's resilience. And so that's why the funds toward the project are eligible, because the project will enhance the resilience of the community.
So we could also use that for other resiliency projects within the town.
Well, this was a specific action grant proposal that the town received. So you have to use the grant funds for which, for the activities you proposed initially, which is the completion of the project plans and bid specifications.
Okay. All right. Mike?
I guess, Carol, are you recommending that we sort of wait and see until we have to make the determination? Is that what you recommended? Or did I misunderstand what you had said?
Well, my statement was, and I don't want to necessarily call it a recommendation, but my
Sure.
statement is that the course of using, as we have the facts today, the course of using the conservation land will utilize, it'll either require out-of-pocket funds from the town to cover the due diligence cost, or it'll take some of the grant funds away from the project purposes for that use. So that's I think just a fact. And it's also, I think, true that it's not clear that the MVP grant value would be eligible match for any grant program that has yet been identified. I reached out today to some of our federal agency partners to check that. The one I did have a chance to speak with was very skeptical, and I could continue that due diligence and try to get a better, clearer answer for you on that. But in terms of match for construction funding, it's not at all clear that the MVP would be eligible match. I can't tell you that with certainty. So, so for those two reasons, tabling this until there's more clarity on the eligibility of the MVP for grant match for another purpose, would you'd have time to sort that out, and there's no need to make this decision today. And Sarah, you might want to weigh in on the timetable for this kind of decision.
Okay,
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Sarah?
Thank you. Yeah. The decision will be based within the time frame of the award, but Carol is correct. If the committee here today decides that they don't want to make the decision, we can definitely wait and look for opportunities. I'm not sure the timeline of the particular MVP grant, but we could wait until that grant is even initiated within the next year and then make a decision based on opportunities that are available. We have 2 more years to make a decision. And that will allow us time to explore opportunities as a partnership and see if the land makes more sense, or if we could leverage the original funding at no cost or no additional modifications to the grant as originally proposed, if that's the best course of action. So I think I answered the question, but we're not in any pressure to identify a means to resolve this tonight as far as the NACA grant is concerned.
Okay, Mike?
I'd just like to move to table this until there's more information.
Second.
Okay.
Discussion? Wait.
Yeah, so I'd actually have a modified motion, but rather than tabling it, we can say something that something along the lines that before the MVP funds are expended to come back to the board. Something like that, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I don't have any problem. I just don't feel prepared to make a decision right now.
Okay.
And I think, it may be more clear in the not so distant future.
Okay, so would you want to retract the motion?
I'm sorry, I've got my hand up.
Yeah, I'm asking the person that made the motion, Helen.
Sure. If you have a motion, Ryan, why don't you move to, I would retract the motion.
Okay. I move that before MVP funds are committed by the town of Wellfleet as the match for the potential Ducks Unlimited grant to be approved, that would have to come back before the select board for its approval.
Helen, second.
Okay.
I have a question for
Yes.
Carol. This is important. Carol, does that give you any part or all of what you need tonight, or does it screw up things?
Well, as I understand the motion is that before there's any final commitment of the MVP grant value as match for the NACA grant, that that we'd have to come back to the board to confirm that. If I'm understanding that as the motion, I don't see any issues with that.
Yep, that's the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, do you have any, or is your hand?
No, oh,
Okay.
sorry, my hand's not up, but I think that would be the case regardless of the motion, that it would have to come before us again, so
Okay,
I'm fine with it.
so roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Ryan,
Michael,
aye. Sorry. Helen?
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Okay, code of conduct.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, Helen?
Yeah, so this is going to be, if we vote for it, and thank you for bringing it back. It would be, then we'd send it out to people.
Yes.
And I just want to say one thing. Courtney and I worked long and hard with Harry to have the table of contents for the select board policies to be usable and in alphabetical order. And one of the things that we really don't want to do is have any more policies that begin with the word policy. So I suggest that everything about it is fine, except that the title of it be Civil Discourse and Personal Conduct. And that will make it more readily, quickly available to any of us when we look it up in the contents, which are now alphabetical. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or discussion on this proposal?
I just I have a question, and I thought it was somewhere in our regulations. What about social media? I think, didn't we discuss that a few years ago, Helen, like posting on social media, responding to social media?
Helen?
It's in one of the policies whose
It
title.
is?
Yeah,
Okay, I just missed it then. Okay, good.
I can't remember the title of that policy.
Yeah,
It's like policy on social media.
policy.
Yeah, it's
It
that
says
obvious.
policy. All of our policies say policy.
No, they don't all. Thank you.
Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, the policy on social media though is really about the town acting as a town on social media. It's not about like select board members or board members. There's some, I did bring this up before, and I think it needs to be addressed in the future to some point about avoiding open meeting law violations and stuff like that on social media. But that's not for tonight anyway, but I think it is worth bringing up again.
Yeah, this proposal is more about conduct and the relationship to the community and others and staff and
Okay,
all that jazz.
yes. Well, I'm all for this. Do you want me to make a motion?
1 second, John.
Or do we
has
need
his
it?
hand up.
Oh, John does? Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing in this that I oppose. I'm just wondering what prompted it. Have there been civility issues on this board or other boards outside of the dust up we had during the joint Board of Health meeting?
I mean, that's an example. I would also say that it is something that sometimes has come up on other committees.
Okay.
And that it also has come up in terms of how people relate to, in a number of towns, this is not unique to Wellfleet, how people conduct themselves. And we have to set some standards because there's been, and right now I don't think there's I don't know. So
well, it's a general issue countrywide.
Yes. Mike, you have your hand up?
I don't mean to,
Okay.
but I will say one thing, that it's important to have some code of conduct so that you can, when things come up, there's something to point to and say, hey, you're violating this code of conduct, straighten up your act,
Yeah, I think it's important, so.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Helen?
I just looked through our policies. I think we have is it a bylaw, the anti-harassment policy?
That's different. It's mentioned in this policy that they have to abide by that.
I know, I stuck it in there.
Yep.
But the other thing I wanted to say is, in the index, there's only, I think, 1 or 2 that start with policy. I was just checking to see if I was accurate. And I don't see anything on social media there, but that may be in that harassment document. So
The harassment policy is about sexual harassment, Helen.
not only, no. Anyway, never
Well,
mind. Let's keep
Future discussions, future
Yep.
topics.
and as amended. Don't forget, Janet, when you make the motion as amended. Thank you.
I'm not
making the motion.
I don't support that amendment.
What, having it be easy to find in the table of contents, you don't support that?
How about this? Why don't we call it sorry, Ryan, why don't we call it the personal conduct and civil discourse policy?
I mean, literally all of the select board policies start with policy.
No, they don't. I looked in the index just now. None of them, except for, I think, 2, policy on policy. And
Did
maybe,
you open up the policies?
yeah, well, that's not what's in the table of contents.
Yeah,
So let's have-
okay, so a lot of them say on the title of the policy, they say policy.
This is nitpicking. I'm trying to make it simpler and better. If you don't want to do that, fine. Thank you.
Just leave it. So,
Well, how does the rest of the board feel?
I think it's a small point and we should just say we want this and we'll leave it up to Charlie to come up with a title or
okay,
Rebecca.
so
Then we
I'm-
have to vote on it again.
Yeah, let's not waste any more time on this.
So I move to refer the code of, well, just say code of conduct and shoot. I move to refer the personal conduct, or I move to refer the code of conduct and civil discourse policy, I guess, to the town administrator to distribute to department heads and committees and public bodies of the town of Wellfleet.
Helen, second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, so just to be clear, this policy will go out to everybody, collecting comments, and then come back to us. And I mean, we
Okay.
didn't set a deadline, but usually, 5 weeks, 6 weeks.
I think there's a deadline, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And a lot of times we've been setting a deadline that's closer because the deadline on policy and policies is really long. One second, I'm reading.
Say the end of February,
Yeah.
because
February
everybody should
28th.
meet. Yeah, everybody should meet at least once between now and February.
Okay, to be returned to the select board on by February 28th.
Yeah.
Helen?
Yeah, I think we should stick with whatever the deadline is in our policy. We can't just sort of, if we want to change, let's just stick with whatever is in there and hope that people get back. to
Okay, so the policy says this process shall take no longer than 8 weeks. So we can specify a shorter time period,
Okay,
but we're basically specifying 8 weeks by February 28th regardless.
fine.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So is that motion seconded?
Second.
Okay,
Aye.
roll call vote, please.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Code of conduct. Bylaw on the feeding of wild animals. Are you going to
Yeah.
postpone that, or are you going to present?
Hi there, you all got my email. The park only got back to us. They had to find these regulations, and we, the animal control officer and I needed to be sure that we knew what they were. So it's pretty much done. It's just we need to dot those i's. So this is our first, in a way, warrant article, because it would have to be a bylaw. But there are a lot of people, as I wrote to you initially, not a lot of people, but there are quite a few situations where this is happening and not making things okay. So thank you. Let's bump it to possibly the next meeting whenever it can be, fit in. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So to the single use or commercial single use non-alcoholic beverage bottle ban. So this kind of follows up on the current ban, which is, I think it's kind of silly that didn't include carbonated beverages to start with, or anything besides water. We basically made it harder to get one of the healthiest options you can choose to drink in favor of the least healthy options. And so this would, it's basically, yeah, non-alcoholic, but yeah. Janet?
So why just non-alcoholic beverages? If we did all single-use beverages, that would take care of nips. I know that's a whole nother
Yeah, so
problem, but it should be worked on.
I actually looked at NIPS, and we don't need a bylaw to address those. So what Mashpee did is that they made it a condition of the liquor license. And they just did it with the select board vote. It would require a public hearing to do that. And the other issue with that is that there are bottles larger than nips that are plastic that contain alcohol. So I mean, our bylaw basically says a gallon. So anything under a gallon, if it was alcoholic or if it had alcohol in it, which is quite a few different products, wouldn't be sellable. And I think that's a little too restrictive.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Helen?
I like this. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by the board?
Yeah,
Mike?
yeah, that's why I didn't support the plastic bottle ban originally at town meeting, was because I didn't want people to make it more difficult for people to get water than Gatorade or soda. So I'm in support of this generally, but I hope that enough towns do this that beverage manufacturers actually change their bottling practices.
Okay. So I move to insert and recommend an article on for special town meeting, or not special town meeting, an annual town meeting for a bylaw, or for the proposed bylaw for commercial single-use non-alcoholic beverage plastic bottles. Okay. Mike, do you have your hand up?
No, sorry.
Okay. Sorry, it keeps staying up. Can I have a roll call vote?
Janet, I.
John, I.
Brian, I. Sorry, Mike, I jumped again.
So no, that's all right. I'm just wondering if we can remove the recommendation for now. I just think I need to think about it.
Okay.
Recommendation.
To
What?
recommend, to place and recommend.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just
right.
need
No,
to
we
think
shouldn't
about the
recommend.
implication.
No, we
Okay.
shouldn't
I'd like to place it right now, but I don't want to vote to recommend it.
Okay, so I
Okay.
amend the motion to place with no recommendation.
Ellen seconds.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Oh, no.
All right.
You're doing good, Ryan.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Replacement of the formula business bylaw. So I'm sure we all know that we still have the formula business bylaw on the books. It's gone before town meeting just to strike it out entirely and failed. It's pretty clear that the voters still want something that protects the character of Wellfleet in some shape or form. When it was struck out, town council did have some examples of other models that the town could adopt that have been enforceable. And they've just not been acted on by the planning board. So at this point, I would like to basically ask town council to draft a model or draft a bylaw for us to present. I don't think it will make this town meeting, but for a future town meeting, if that makes sense. So where's the board on this?
Well, may I speak first, Ryan?
Yep.
So I was on the planning board when this formula business bylaw first came into effect. It was very, very, very difficult to encompass everything. And we do need to have the planning board, this is really their purview, to be in on this. But I know that it's also very frustrating not to have it enforceable. So, and town council did end up writing the bylaw. So I don't know if anybody has a specific idea of how they want to change it. It's a good idea to work on it, but we got to start working on it.
Yeah, I would just say the planning board's had 6 years. I mean, that's enough time to have something. So, but
Well, there is something. What are they dragging their feet on?
the bylaw is unenforceable right now.
Yeah.
This is after Cumberland sued the town.
Yeah.
And invalidated the whole bylaw, but it's every time it's gone, they've proposed it at town meeting to strike it out, I think twice, and it's failed both times overwhelmingly. So if that makes sense. Helen?
Yeah, yeah. All right.
I would even like to make a motion. I think that we should definitely ask town council to draft it so that it is enforceable, and with a direction that they make it so that it is something that the town can support. Because right now the town would like it to be enforceable, but it can't be. And to make it legally enforceable, I think would get town meeting support. So let's somebody move to send it to town council to make a draft of it and ask them to do it before, in time for the warrant this spring. They work for us, they can do it. And then it gets sent to the planning board and let's see what they do with it. But I agree with Janet, of course it has to go to the planning board, but let's have the language submitted directly by town council and there will be less, should we say, palaver, having just experienced that on the ADU bylaw.
Okay.
Be approved by town council.
I think we need to get some examples of some working bylaws that are enforceable right now so that we can give town council some direction. I would guess that would be typically the planning board's role in that type of thing. But I think just asking them to blanket write a formula business bylaw, I think is setting us up for some potential issues and maybe an expensive process of getting there. So I'd personally, if we're going to go down this road as a select board, like to see some examples of, business bylaws so that we can make suggestions about what would fit in our small town and how they go. Because I remember when this was struck down, some of the suggestions that were made of things you can enforce are based on like how many cars you can park in a business. And they're very technical things because you can't discriminate against an actual business itself. So the idea of making one that works is really to create a bylaw which is unfavorable to certain size businesses rather than certain types of businesses.
Right.
And I think I'm not opposed to it. I think it's actually kind of a complicated problem. And I think that as a board, if we're going to go down the road of being the sort of responsible party for having this drafted, that we need to do due diligence and not just say, hey, let's just, get whatever town council comes up with. So I'm not opposed to starting this process, but I think we need as a board to, have a look at some things. And, I'd prefer that the planning board did this because that's really what they're there to do. And so maybe the best option is to sort of direct the planning board to draft one.
Yeah, we
I
can't
don't
do
know if
that.
that's the best situation, right now, but
We can't direct.
So I will ask the planning board their thoughts, or something like that, and see. I don't think many towns it was very, very tricky. And I think Nantucket was the only town that really got away with it. So, yeah,
let's find out what Nantucket has then.
Yeah, well, we did. We actually based ours on Nantucket, but they have more character that's definable. So
Well-
I'll talk to the planning board, and I'll talk to the Cape and Islands Selectmen's and Councilors Association too, and see if anybody has any ideas.
So when the bylaw was struck down, the town council did provide examples of enforceable bylaws around this issue. And I think some of them are even from north of Boston.
Yeah.
I'm fine with moving forward on this. I just think I need to see them before we ask anything to be drafted on our behalf.
Yeah, so what I would recommend then is that we ask town council to provide examples of enforceable bylaws with this intent.
So Ryan, just because I'm really thrifty, I would rather not start with town council doing the work that myself, other select board people throughout the Cape and the planning board can look at examples and start looking at it.
All right, I mean, as I said, the planning board's had 6 years to
Yeah.
do this, and
Well, if we can just get some examples.
Yeah.
Send
Yeah.
it to us. I don't care who it comes from. I don't mind doing some research, but I haven't had time to really look at it. And I think we need to give some direction if we're going to go this way. I think it's a little bit complicated because of the way that these are the formula business bylaw can't really be a formula business bylaw.
Right.
It just can't. So it's a complicated problem. It's not intractable, but I think, we need to look at it and sort of direct it in a way that suits town Wellfleet.
Okay. Helen?
Yes, two things. The first is the reason to send it first to town council, Janet, and you're perfectly right. Let's by all means spread the word. I hope you do that at the association meetings. But town council has at the tips of their fingers all the case law that's current in terms of this kind of bylaw. And yes, they are the ones that can supply also at the tips of their fingers really easily. And having researched that a number of times, both as a planning board, as a planning board member, and recently with the ADU bylaw, other towns' things, it would work quicker with town council doing it because of what I just said about case law. The second thing is, Ryan, respectfully, I have been waiting to be recognized. I don't mind doing that. I want to hear everything Michael and Janet have to say, but they didn't wait to be recognized. However you want to run this.
I called on them, Helen. They had their hands up.
Yes, but then they kept speaking. I'm just saying, thank you.
Okay, so where are we on this then? Is what I'm hearing is that Janet, you would like a time to see if you can source anything?
Yeah, I mean, I, a long time ago, a few years ago, we were kind of told not to just approach town council for every little thing that we need, and because our bill was running up. So right now, as we speak, I am looking up formula business bylaws.
So what you'll find is a lot that were passed before 2016, which is when ours was invalidated, which made most of those unenforceable. So
you've already looked this up. Okay.
yes, the examples in Massachusetts, a lot of them are from before 2016.
Yeah.
And they're likely unenforceable after our ruling. So, but if you want to do that and reach out and see if you can find anything, I'm willing to wait
Okay.
at this time. But I really do think that just getting examples from town council might be the most effective use of everybody's time. But I don't know. Mike, where are you on this?
I just think we can ask town council for some examples, and they probably can send us a few pretty quickly.
Yep.
Of ones that are enforceable from after that time or have been drafted more recently. I think that this is actually a pretty complicated problem. So I'm interested in it. So that's fine, but I'd be in favor of just asking for some examples and
Okay.
recommendations.
Yep. Helen, so I guess then I'm.
They have are you calling on me or not?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, they have model bylaws that they send out, and so does the state. So what I usually do in these situations is first I find some model bylaws. I start with the state. KP Law has them. I also went through this about the dogs too, the animal control. And then you just go to places that are like ours and go to their website and find out what their bylaws are. It's very easy. It takes maybe 2 hours. Thank you. But town council does it quicker and better because of the case law thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're going to search for formula business bylaws in Massachusetts, you're going to find all the ones from before 2016.
Yeah. And no case law.
Because they'll be called something different now, and I don't know what the terms would be to find them. So I would like to move to request that town council provide examples of bylaw or bylaws with the intent shown in the pre-existing Wellfleet's formula business bylaw to protect the character of the town.
That are enforceable, currently
Yep,
enforceable.
that goes without saying, but that are enforceable.
Helen second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. Charlie, is that clear enough?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Select board reports. Did we all have a good holiday?
Yes.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, except for picking up COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay home.
Could have done without that.
Unusual holiday, but aren't they? They're all different holidays. Glad to be alive.
Okay.
Is this the time to mention a point about something we addressed?
I'm not
Future
sure.
concern.
Is it future concern that you're?
I guess it would be a future concern, yeah.
All right, then we'll cover it under future concern.
Okay.
So I guess there's no select board reports. Town administrators report. Charlie.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'll just go through a number of things. I'm going to add a couple of others. I did meet with the Finance Committee on December 15th, and just want to thank the Finance Committee. They gave us a reserve fund transfer to pay for the costs for the town administrator search consulting process. And then also they gave me some money to continue paying off the installment plan for our property and liability insurance program. We had started off the year with a $70,000 deficit in that budget. So anyway, thank you, Finance Committee. Carol Ridley has been setting up a number of meetings relative to the Herring River Restoration Project. They've been frequent. They've involved all of the stakeholders and participants. And it's all focused on making sure that we're all integrated and coordinated relative to important steps that have to happen along the way. But they've been really productive. And I just wanted to recognize Carol's efforts on behalf of the town of Wellfleet. Jay Norton has received approval for 3 Chapter 90 program applications. First one is the Lieutenant Island Bridge repair in the amount of $117,000 plus. The second one was the engineering design for the Route 6 Main Street project, $23,000. And the third one was to update the town's pavement management program in the amount of $25,800. So Jay's working on all of those projects. I talked about this a while back, that the town of Wellfleet in Provincetown, in Truro, had gotten a grant to study the Lower Cape regionalization of fire and rescue operations. Chief Polly has attended a couple of meetings on that project, but I have received a contact from the consultant that was selected as Capital Strategic Solutions. We're trying to start to set up a series of meetings with various officials to talk about this project. So anyway, the project is moving slowly, but it is progressing. And then I received a request from New Bedford Waste Services. They have the contract for the disposal of our municipal solid waste. It appears like there's a sale pending to Waste Connections US Holding, Inc. And they've requested an assignment of their interest over to Waste Connections. Anyways, town council's looking at the legal document, the amendment to the contract that they sent to me. So anyway, when I get that back, I'll let you know. And then I did receive a request from a vendor who would like to lease some town-owned land. It's on a utility pole on Gross Hill Road. And I'm going to be meeting with them later on this week just to better understand their proposal. And I'll report back to the select board. No matter what, it's going to require, certainly approval by the select board, but town meeting approval as well. But I just wanted to let you know that they've reached out to me. And then on the when Chief Polly had presented his capital plan and Jay Norton relative to the problems that we have with the HVAC system at the Wellfleet Fire Station building, we do have to carry out some engineering studies of the HVAC system. And thanks to the efforts of Jay Norton, we received a grant from the Cape Light Compact in the amount of $12,750 to pay for that engineering study. So that was nice news. Thank you, Jay. I did execute, number 8, I did execute 2 participation agreement forms. It was recommended by town council relative to the opioid lawsuit settlement fund. And based upon the documentation that we received, Wellfleet's settlement amount will be in the range of, there's 2 different agreements, $54,000 and $72,000, and would be receiving those monies over 18 years. And the we have a contract for the maintenance of streetlights in town through the Cape Light Compact that expired on June 31st, 2021. And Cape Light Compact negotiated an extension of that agreement. I signed it. That's through June 30th, 2022. So they'll be working on a bidding process for a succeeding agreement after that. And then we talked about this a little bit past, but the solar system at the landfill is activated and fully operational. Nice news. I do have a meeting, I think on Thursday of this week, with the vendor that we use to install that, and they're gonna meet with some of our staff, just so they can talk to us about how that's gonna work. You know, net metering, lease payments, so that we can work that into the financial forecast for the budget for FY23. Anyway, we're working on that. I already went over the financial issues. You know, Jay Norton was promoted to the DPW director's position, so we've just posted the advertisement for his position, his old position, the assistant DPW director's position. I think we talked earlier in the meeting possibly, but yeah, there was that we have a new assistant conservation health agent. I think we talked about that earlier. She started today. And the dredging has been completed at the harbor by December 31st. And you've already seen them start to demobilize this week, their equipment. And the pilings are going to be reinstalled in January. So, you know, that we had some, you know, difficulties at the beginning of that project, but things have worked out reasonably well. And then I did appoint the building commissioner to administer and monitor the ADU bylaw. That was based upon a recommendation by Rebecca Ruffley, the assistant town administrator. And I did receive some feedback on that issue, whether that's an appropriate action. So I just want to let you know, I'm going to spend a little more time monitoring that once Rebecca gets back next week. And the water main project is going to be beginning in mid-January. And you found out a little bit earlier, but there is going to be a public forum coming up to educate residents about that important project. And then the water rate study is underway by Pioneer Consulting. I had a preliminary meeting last week with our consultants, and we're trying to set up a follow-up meeting with some of the water commissioners just to talk about some of the information that's been generated from that water rate study. And then the only other two things I'd like to add is periodically, Lisa Sauvé and Mary McIsaac and I meet with a small subset of the finance committee. I had to cancel a meeting just before Christmas. I had a conflict. But anyway, we've rescheduled that for this Thursday, January 6th. So my point is we're continuing to make sure the finance committee is engaged in our efforts and knowledgeable. Those have been really productive meetings to date. And then we have a kickoff meeting for the town administrator search committee, and that's next week on January 12th. That's all I have right now.
Okay, questions, John?
Yeah, two questions. One has to do with the HVAC issue at the fire department. And I wondered if maybe Rich Pauley might be able to weigh in on this too, but will the re-engineering of the HVAC system at the firehouse take into account some of the issues that I and I think others raised regarding the over-engineering of the current system, so we can avoid doing that again?
Yes, yeah, that's the very intention of this project. And so Chief Pauley and Jay Norton will be actively overseeing this project. So those concerns will be addressed within that this evaluation.
Okay, okay. And I just forgot what my other question was.
Oh, we'll come back to you. I understand.
Okay, I would just say that I wish that the opiate settlement was for a little bit larger with some, but every community is wishing that right now. So it barely makes up for the harm that was done.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
So excuse me. So Ryan, I didn't quite hear what you said. What was the beginning of what you said? What was the harm?
The opiate lawsuit
Oh,
settlement.
opiate. Okay, I just didn't understand that word. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. In terms of the streetlight contract, is there any increase in the amount for that?
No, it's just a continuation of the, for this next 6 months at the rates that we have today.
Okay. What happens after 6 months?
Well, we're gonna be going out to bid this spring.
Okay.
So we should, that's gonna take, it's gonna take a few months.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Charlie?
What was the last item, Charlie, that you had brought up? I think that's
Oh,
where I
the
got-
Town Administrator Search Committee is having our initial kickoff meeting on January 12th.
Will that be available to listen in or?
Yes, yeah, it'll be a public meeting.
Okay,
Oh.
very good.
Before the, I'm sorry. Brian?
Yep.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
Helen.
Just to clarify, before they start discussing application.
Deliberating. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we're just gonna be talking, thank you, Helen. We're just gonna be talking about process issues and timeline and, I think some of the things that, when I worked on this in Provincetown, we started to use the committee to develop draft questions and sort of talk about how we do the interview. So a lot of prep work has to be done. Of course, we have to organize as well, so.
All right. With that, let's move on to topics for future discussion. Helen, do you have one?
Yeah, I really want to have a progress report, not just, oh, we're working on it, on the fuel tanks at the marina and why they haven't been put in yet. Thank you. No more excuses. We should have had this done years ago. Thank you.
Okay, they had to get
Yeah.
they had to get reauthorized by town meeting, so. Janet?
Well, since we're on this, we kind of are on the subject at looking at a lot of our regulations. I do think we should look at social media policy and commenting on them with all boards. And I really thought we had one. So just, it's kind of like the same thing as like responding to mail, privately, rather than as a board. So I think that would be good. And I forgot what my second thing was.
Okay, would you be drafting that?
I could start looking at it. Yeah, sure. Right after the formula business bylaw I'm doing. But yeah, I could do that. I mean, I already kind of started it, so.
Okay.
Because I was looking for it today.
John?
Yeah, I don't know that this is something I'd be wanting to necessarily draft. It's just more along the lines of a question I have going forward. And it has to do with the rather, somewhat lengthy discussion we had on the stairs at the pond there. From my understanding of, my reading of the charter, and granted, I don't have it in front of me right now. It seems to me that getting into the weeds as far as, all this, the issues of the dimensions and so forth is something that should have been, it seems should have been the subject of a plan submitted to us by DPW and the beach committee, the beach department, rather than for us to actually get into, we're supposed to be deciding policies, not so much as the nits and grits of stuff like that. And I just wondered, is that something we need to address or keep in mind, or am I completely off base about that?
Ron?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so John, that's a legitimate question, but you have to remember that it all started with an email from Suzanne Grout Thomas asking the board to give her feedback before a meeting. And I did that because she requested it.
Mhm.
And, you know, and I was also responding simply as a citizen who's used it a lot. So I get your point, but the point is she requested it. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the other issue there is there's two. One is that the land is held by the under the jurisdiction of the select board. So we are the jurisdictional board over the land, except there are some, you know, overlaps with other boards, obviously. But ultimately we hold the land, and in terms of governing the landings, that is the select board's prerogative under Mass General Law. So, Janet?
So I completely agree with John on this. And really, I would like everyone on the select board to look at how we do handle every agenda item. I think since I see Rich Pauley and Michael Hurley's, they're still on. It really is not our job. Our job is to let the department heads do their job, to do the research. I think Chief Hurley did a great job of weighing everything with the hybrid vehicles. I mean, the select board isn't supposed to nitpick and say, this is what I want, this is what we want. You know, the department heads really make the decisions, and we agree, either support the decisions or not. This is a topic for another day, but I agree that I actually took notes, because to me it's micromanaging, it's obsessive compulsive in many ways. It actually is demeaning quite often to department heads and committee chairs to kind of go into the minutia of what they have worked on, and you know, trust the professionals. That isn't really our job.
All right, well, this is becoming a discussion, so.
Nope, I'm done. I just want to throw that out there, that we really, if people disagree, we should talk about it, but another time.
Okay, Helen, is this on a different topic?
No, I took my hand down.
Okay, all right. Okay. There's no correspondence report. It's not a regular meeting. So minutes.
Can we approve them?
Helen submitted an amendment late or something, right?
Yeah.
Did we all see that? In any case, I can read it to you, but there was.
Yeah, I would, just before we get into that, I would say that if you're gonna submit substantial amendments, to try to get them to us before, an hour before our meeting. So.
I agree with that. This happened late for reasons that I can't go into now, but in any case, did we all see this, or can Rebecca?
Was this the dog thing with
No,
the seashore? What is this?
This was an
Okay.
amendment to these minutes that we're about to approve. And it was an adjustment in section 8, which was topics for future discussion, where I reported to the board about this correspondence from the DOT that both the town administrator and Jay Norton were also confused by. And I changed the language in that section of the minutes that were the draft minutes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, I got it.
Quite accurate. I can read them to you if you want, but I would be willing to move these minutes as amended.
Are you gonna vote?
Am I going to vote on what?
The amendment, the minutes.
Well, I'm going to vote on them if we.
You're not gonna
decide-
abstain? Because
What?
you can't.
No,
You're not gonna abstain.
I may or may not. That's my privilege.
So if you make the motion, you actually can't abstain.
Well, fine, then I'll vote on them.
Okay.
But
So.
you know, I had
Go
a
ahead,
question,
John.
but now I can't find it. I trying to figure out how to get to it on here. Technology, God.
Well, do you want to make the motion, Ryan?
No, you're gonna make the motion, so you vote.
Well, I don't have to vote.
Well, it's your amendment, so
Hey, somebody else could, okay, whatever, fine.
Could I just,
I'm looking for it too.
yeah, I'm trying to find, there's something I had wanted to raise and I had it. Now I can't, I think I'm finding my way.
okay,
to it.
so if there's other amendments, let's take no action tonight and come back to it.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay,
Is that good with the other board members?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine.
it's okay with me.
And again,
All
I apologize for sending it in so late.
Okay, so with that, I move to adjourn.
Helen second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Janet, I.
John, I.
Michael, I.
Ryan, I.
Helen, I. Happy New Year.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, happy New Year. Good night,
Happy
all.
New Year, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Thank you.
Charlie. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, everybody.
Chief Hurley. Who else is on?